Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar. I'm Roy from Port. I'm joined today with my team here at the product team, Bar, and we are very excited to share with you our new offering in Port, which is called Engineering 360. Engineering 360, and by the way, before I dive deeper into Engineering 360, I want to step back 1 second and talk about Port. Port is an internal developer portal, right? It's a way to unify developer experience in one spot, in one place. And Engineering 360 is the only way to combine metrics, hard metrics, and user and developer feedback, developer sentiment in one spot to understand what your developers need most to accelerate the velocity of your engineering organization. This is what we're here all about. Platform engineering, we're all about developer experience. As you can see over here, we're all about accelerating the developers in your organization. But first, how do we go about accelerating them? So Engineering 360 helps to find the biggest bottleneck inside of your engineering organization. It could be some kind of framework, a library, a process that is broken, maybe a CI, maybe a CI/CD action that is broken, maybe something else. It could be anything that is broken in your organization. Engineering 360 helps you find, to hone in on the biggest bottleneck, and then to clear it, to unclog it, to accelerate the flow of your engineering organization. We call it the 4-step process. The first step is by collecting metrics and running surveys. Metrics like DORA metrics, which we will talk all about today, and you'll understand everything you need to know on how to run DORA metrics in your organization and to understand what's the velocity of your engineering organization and what's the quality of the outputs of your engineering organization. And we're also going to help you understand what is all about developer experience surveys. Developer experience surveys are all about understanding what is the actual human sentiment, what is the human sentiment that your engineers actually feel while they are working day to day, and what is their insights. And both only metrics and surveys together can help you in step 2, which is IDing, honing in to what is the key bottlenecks that you need to solve. The key bottlenecks can be a broken workflow, a broken CI, as I said. It can be anything else. And only running surveys and collecting metrics both can help you understand them. Then once we understand what is our key bottleneck, so for example, we can say that we saw the metrics, and we ran a survey, and we saw developers are very unhappy when they are working with Python, maybe. I'm not sure if we have any Python fans out there in the chat, but maybe some flaws with the Python process. And we can see it also with the human sentiment that engineers are pushing through in their human feedback, and also with the metrics. We can see that the deployment frequency in Python teams is slower. We can see that maybe the change failure rate, which is the amount of bugs released, and we're going to talk about all of that in a second, is broken in Python. Now we can see, okay, we need to design a process. Maybe we need to upgrade the Python versions all around the organization. Maybe we need to fix some testing environment in Python. Maybe we need to migrate Python altogether. No matter what the problem is, you're going to be able to find a solution inside of Port. And then at step number 4, we give you the ability to measure and celebrate the improvement upwards, so you can share to your managers and your teams and everybody all around that you actually improved something inside of your engineering organization. Why we started this process of Engineering 360 was that we saw that teams adopting developer portals and platform engineering teams adopting developer portals usually start with step number 3. They start by designing a process. Maybe they are working on improving some workflows. But how do they know which one to solve? How do they know what is the most painful thing they need to tackle with? And we saw this problem because we saw our customers and our clients ranging from PwC and GitHub to all the way to all smaller companies and everywhere. We saw them struggling with coming up with the biggest pain points inside of the organization. And then maybe they were just doing, I'll just do some service catalog, I'll just do something else. This is not the right way to go about it. This is what we understood. And we understood that you need to find the biggest pain point and tackle it first. This is why we believe teams need to start here by collecting metrics and running surveys, then IDing the bottlenecks. We're going to dive deep on all the features that Engineering 360 gives you inside Port, which you get out of the box for free once you sign up to Port, and it's inside of our package. You get clear visibility into DORA metrics like deployment frequency and MTTR. We'll double click on them in a second. You're gonna get developer sentiment, human sentiment, right? What's people actually feeling like, where friction lives. Proof of progress. You're gonna get the proof that your organization is improvement, that your engineering organization is improving somehow. And you're gonna get justification for the platform investment which you put, which can be big. Great. So now let's dive deep into the features and processes that we improve inside Port. So I'll share my screen again. Amazing. So this is an empty Port organization, which I opened just for the sake of today's webinar. You can see over here that we now have a new experience folder, which is the new way to install DORA metrics or surveys. You hit that, and then you can click to start a new DORA metrics dashboard or a new survey. We're going to start with the DORA metrics, and we're going to start by the setup of a DORA metrics. Before I'll be able to explain how to set up a DORA metrics, which is very simple with just 2 clicks, we need to explain what are DORA metrics. So DORA metrics are separated into 2 categories: velocity, measuring velocity, and measuring quality. To measure velocity of an engineering organization, we have 2 big metrics which you can use to work with. We have the deployment frequency, and we have the change lead time. By the way, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. I'll answer when we have a pause. So deployment frequency. Deployment frequency measures how often an application changes are deployed to production. Okay, it measures the deployments. Higher deployment frequencies indicates a more efficient and responsive delivery process. The simplest way to measure it, you take the amount of deployments, you divide by time. So for example, 5 deployments per week, 10 deployments per month, 1 deployment a day, whatever you want. This is the way you measure deployment frequency. What's good about it is that you see if your organization is moving fast, is changing, right? Is your organization releasing new things into production, into their users, to your users. The second metric that measures velocity is lead time for change. Lead time for change helps you measure the time. You measure with lead time for change, you measure the time it takes for a code commit or a change to be successfully deployed. This is an important part, successfully deployed into production. It reflects the efficiency. It reflects the efficiency of your delivery, of your software delivery. So those 2 metrics How can you measure lead time for change? For example, you can measure it from the first PR that was opened, the first time a PR was opened, to the time this PR was merged and deployed to production. You can imagine shortening this time means an organization that has a high throughput. The other part of velocity, which we cannot forget, is quality, right? And we can move fast, but we have to also improve the quality. So for quality, we have two more metrics which are important to measure. By the way, in a second, I will explain that these metrics are not just enough, and you need more metrics to understand everything. So MTTR is the measurement, the time that it takes to recover from a failure, okay? The times to recover from an incident. This is very important, as you can imagine that organizations, once in a while, you're going to have an incident. There's nothing you can do about it. The important thing is whether you can improve, whether you can shorten, whether you can cut down the time it takes from an incident to being open to an incident being resolved, right? So we have some benchmarks for them. You can imagine like 5 hours is pretty mediocre. 2 days is very, very bad. And then we have elite performers even faster than that. The other metric that measures quality is change failure rate. Change failure rate is measurement of the percentage of deployments, right? The percentage of deployments that cause an incident, right? So not all deployments cause an incident. Some deployments are successful, but once in a while, you're going to get a deployment that creates an incident. This deployment is measured and divided against the total deployments for this amount of time. So these 4 metrics are what you get with the DORA metrics suite, which is what you're going to get once you use Engineering 360 inside Port. Hopefully, you're not hearing the dog barking on the background. So to measure all these metrics, you only need to define 2 things, which is what's very cool about these metrics. You only need to measure 2 things, to define 2 things. One is the deployment. What constitutes a deployment? We've seen organizations that set a deployment as a merge to master, a merge to main branch. Maybe this is your organization. Other organizations has a more complicated setup of what is a deployment. No matter what you have, we can support it at Port via either just picking, do you measure it via a GitHub pull request, for example? You're gonna see you can pick out GitHub. You want to measure by a PR merge action, right? You want to merge to main, whether your organization, maybe in your organization you call this master, maybe you call this like dev or prod or whatever you call this branch. We're gonna support it, and you can set up additional filters to filter to make sure you only get what you need, and then you're good to go. And this is the deployment. If this is too complicated, if your organizational scenario is much more complicated than just a deployment, you're gonna need to use an API. And this is the guide over here. It's also very simple to use. Basically, what you do is you set up somewhere in your deployment workflow, you call a REST API, and it logs this REST API logs that the deployment occurred. You give it all the metadata, and you're good to go. We'll handle the rest. Again, with incidents, all you need to do is you need to define what is an incident. What is an incident? This is pretty simple. If you have PagerDuty, you can set it up pretty simple. We have an amazing integration set up for PagerDuty. But if not, again, you can support it via the API, and if whatever way you have of configuring what is an incident inside of your organization is going to be supported via the API via the API integration we have at Port. Once you complete the setup of these two things only, you're gonna get a DORA metrics dashboard, which immediately helps you understand what's going on in your organization. Is your deployment frequency good enough, or it needs improvement? You can see it on a chart. You can see a historical chart. You can see this today chart. We can see it by team, which can help us understand, do we have teams that are more successful than others? It doesn't mean that the engineers are at fault. It means that something in the DevOps practices, in the platform practices with these specific teams or infrastructures might need some improvement. So again, everything over here is configurable. You can set up what constitute as a great and what constitute as a needs improvement. And you can add more conditions for this conditional formatting. And by the way, you can hit the docs and learn more at our docs at docs.port.io. So this is DORA metrics, and this is everything you need to know about DORA metrics. But DORA metrics, as we said, are not enough. They give you only an overview of what is the situation in your organization. To really understand everything, to get a complete understanding of your engineering organization, you're gonna need human sentiment. You're gonna need a developer feedback, actual developer feedback, to understand the gaps that are occurring over here. And this is why we have for you the next experience that we're going to show today, which is a survey. A survey is a pretty simple experience. You can pick the surveys we have. We have some out-of-the-box surveys for you already prepared, or you can create your own custom survey if you want to ask your engineers something. I recommend you choose one of our pre-made surveys built with varying amount of care and effort. Let's skim over what you do. Basically, is once you click new and get this new experience up and running, you're gonna get over here to your survey dashboard, which is only visible to you as the builder. You should set the permissions over here so it's only visible to you. And you copy this link and you share it via Slack, you share it via email, whatever is via Microsoft Teams. We have upcoming Slack apps and other cool features, and you can also ask for more features in our open roadmap. But basically what you need to do is just click this link and then you share the survey over to your engineering organization to get a further understanding. So let's go to quick overview on what are the questions over here in this developer feedback, human feedback sentiment survey. So for example, we have which tasks take up most of your time in your workflow. Why is this important? As you can see, this is something you really want to know as a platform engineer or as an engineering leader, right? You want to know what times are developers spending a lot of time on solving bugs, on refactoring code, maybe meetings. You know, there are some biases always with engineers that are going to lean here or there. And this is why you need to take care of once you get the feedback actually and understand what it means. But without knowing anything, you really can't understand what you need to solve first. What are the biggest blockers that an engineer faces most of the time, right? Let's just pick some random things over here. By the way, feel free if you have any questions up until now to ask them down below. Maybe you receive, maybe the time it takes for code reviews, right? What is the amount of time it takes to a response or in a code review, in a new PR? Are they satisfied with the development process, with the automated tests, and so on and so forth? This is what you get from one of those surveys inside of this survey experience import. And then you're gonna get this dashboard which gives you, this one, which gives you, for example, we can see what's the average satisfaction of incident management. This is very, very good satisfaction rate for the incident management. You can see lots of different answers and lots of different questions. You can break them down by teams and everything and understand a lot about what is your biggest bottlenecks, right? Which is why we're here for. What is your biggest bottleneck that you need to tackle with as an engineering leader or a platform engineer? So before I dive deeper into what's the difference and how does it work inside Port, I want to share, we also have an AI Copilot assistant usage, which is another metrics feature that we have at Port, offering to understand what is the return on investment, if any, that you have. So you bought for your engineering organization, you bought Copilot and you shared Copilot to everybody, but you want to understand what is the ROI of this tool. So over here you can see that after implementing GitHub Copilot inside this example organization, the MTTR, the mean time to recover from incident, really shrinked. You can see it started from 11 hours and 12 hours. It shrunk into only 6 hours as the GitHub Copilot usage soars. And it stayed over 6 to 7 hours around that time. This means that the GitHub Copilot really helps engineers to solve incidents faster and move quicker once they are dealing with incidents. And we can see like what are the active users and more features. And the open vulnerabilities, that is might be very important. Maybe AI is used mainly AI is used to solve open issues and open vulnerabilities from the security teams. And this is a really easy use case for AI usually to fix. And this is why we usually see, once we start implementing AI like Copilot and AI assistants, we can really see improvements in the amount of vulnerabilities, and we can see them dropping down as we want to see them. So this is again, to wrap up, we have this is the Gen AI code assistant usage dashboard that we have. You can get to it over at demo.getport.io, and you can see again over here in the demo.getport.io, you can see the DORA metrics dashboard, which I just showed. You can see the survey responses dashboard and what it has to offer. And you can see the examples of the different surveys. To wrap up, we are nearing the end, and hopefully everything was clear and understandable. So I'll just share again, why are we doing the Engineering 360 and why we started with this project. So we saw at Port a lot of our clients and customers that need to understand what is the biggest bottleneck, and they just started by implementing something. Maybe they started with some kind of service catalog. Maybe they started with self-service actions or something else. But they didn't solve the biggest bottleneck first. By running surveys, the surveys that you just saw before, and collecting DORA metrics, cutting it down by teams and understanding what is the biggest bottleneck and where it lays, you can ID the bottleneck, and then you can clear it by then creating a self-service action to roll back quickly to cut down MTTR times, by maybe implementing better tests using a scorecard at Port, and by anything else that you can dream inside of a developer portal that can help you understand what it can help you understand what to solve and how to solve it. So if we don't have any more questions, I think we can wrap up now. Let's see if we have. Okay, so thank you everybody for joining for today's session, and we'll see you next time.